My name is Bridget Sinclair. I'm 38 years old. Last Thanksgiving, my sister raised her hand to me in front of 25 relatives, leaving a clear mark on my face, and instead of stepping in, my mother looked straight at me and said, "Apologize or leave right now." My father didn't say a single word. He simply walked to the front door, opened it, and stood there holding it, as if I were some unwanted guest who had stayed too long. So I walked out into the cold November air without saying anything. No goodbye, no explanation, nothing. By 8 o'clock the next morning, my family woke up to a reality they never expected. And to be honest, I didn't recognize it either. If you're watching this, please subscribe and tell me where you're watching from. Now let me take you back to last November, to the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, when I pulled into my parents' driveway for the very last time. The drive from Hartford to my parents' house in Ridgefield, Pennsylvania, usually takes about 3 hours, as long as the turnpike behaves. I arrived around 4 o'clock in the afternoon with my trunk packed full of catering trays from a restaurant near my office. Turkey, side dishes, desserts, the entire holiday meal. I had been paying for Thanksgiving dinner for 6 years in a row, and nobody had ever told me to stop. Vanessa's car was already in the driveway. When I came in through the side door, she was in the kitchen, arranging a cheese board like she was preparing for a morning show segment. Mom was right behind her, fussing with the napkin rings. "There she is," Mom said, barely glancing at me. "Put the food on the counter." No hug, no "how was the drive?" No warmth at all, just instructions. Vanessa lifted a cracker toward me and said, "You're late." I wasn't late. I had told them I'd be there at 4 o'clock. It was 4:07. I started carrying in the trays, and that's when I heard Mom talking to Aunt Colleen in the living room. "Vanessa's been here since noon," she said. "She takes care of everything for us, you know." I looked around the kitchen. The quartz countertops I paid for last spring, the recessed lighting I covered by sending the electrician's deposit, the back door with the glass insert, all of it came from me. But nobody in that house had ever said, "Bridget paid for that." It was always, "We finally got around to updating the kitchen." I set the last tray down and noticed an envelope sitting near the toaster. It was from First Heritage Bank, the lender on my parents' second mortgage. The envelope was sealed, but one corner of the flap looked slightly lifted, like someone had opened it and tried to close it again. I picked it up and turned it over. For a second, my fingers almost opened it. "Don't touch that." Vanessa was behind me. "That's Mom and Dad's mail." I put it back down. But I didn't forget it. I should tell you about Grandma May. She raised me more than my own parents did, and I'm not saying that for effect. When I was 6, Dad started working a second shift at the plant, and Mom began cleaning houses on weekends. Vanessa was 2, still little enough to need everyone's attention, so every morning before school, and every afternoon until dark, I was at Grandma May's house. She taught me how to read a budget, how to look someone in the eye when shaking their hand, how to understand the difference between kindness and letting people take advantage of you. When I was 22, I sat beside her in the hospital and held her hand. The steady beeping of the monitors is something I still remember whenever a room gets too quiet. Near the end, she looked at me with completely clear eyes and said, "Keep them together, Bridget. They don't know how." I promised her I would. For 16 years, I kept that promise. I co-signed the second mortgage on my parents' house when the first one wasn't enough to cover repairs. That was $127,000. I paid the deposit for Vanessa's nail salon, $40,000. For 8 years, I sent $1,200 every month to help cover Mom's medical copays and Dad's supplemental insurance. Every single month. Do the math, and it comes to more than $300,000. And I never asked for a receipt. I never asked for a thank you card. I did it because Grandma May asked me to keep this family together, and for a long time, I believed money could hold the pieces in place. But there was one thing no one in my family ever really thought about. I was a co-signer on that second mortgage, and my name was on the deed. It was there in black and white at the county recorder's office. At the time, I didn't think that detail mattered. I was about to find out it mattered more than anything. By Wednesday evening, the house filled quickly. Aunt Colleen's family arrived. Uncle Ray and his wife came in. The Petersons from across the street showed up too. People kept coming through the front door carrying casserole dishes and bottles of wine. By 7 o'clock, there were more than 20 people in the house, and the whole place smelled like cinnamon and roasted garlic. Dad sat in his recliner with the remote in his hand, watching the pregame coverage. When I walked past, he gave me a small nod. That was it. A nod. I had driven 3 hours, brought the entire dinner, and that was all I got. Mom moved Vanessa around the living room like she was presenting a prize. "You all know my Vanessa," she said, "running her own business now. She's doing so well." Vanessa smiled, tossed her hair, and told everyone about the salon's new gel line. The way she spoke, you would think the business was growing fast. But I knew the truth. The salon had lost money for 3 months in a row. I had seen the statements myself when I helped handle the loan paperwork. Then Aunt Colleen's daughter asked me what I did for work. Before I could answer, Mom jumped in. "Oh, Bridget works up north, some office job." Some office job. I'm the director of business development for a commercial construction firm. I manage projects worth more than my parents' house and every house on their block combined. But to my mother, it was just some office job. Aunt Ruthie, my dad's older sister, was sitting in the corner chair. She was 68, with silver hair and calm, observant eyes. She caught my gaze and gave the smallest shake of her head, almost nothing, but I saw it, and I knew what it meant. She saw me. Later, in the hallway near the bathroom, Vanessa grabbed my arm. Her grip was tight. Her voice was low, but there was nothing gentle about it. "Don't mention the loan," she whispered. "I told Mom it's paid off." I stared at her. "It's not paid off." "Just smile and stay out of my way," she said. "That's all you have to do." Then she walked away, leaving me standing there alone. Let me explain the numbers clearly, because numbers don't twist the truth the way families sometimes do. The second mortgage on my parents' house was $127,000. I co-signed it, and I had made every payment for 8 years. The kitchen renovation cost $34,000. The new roof after the ice storm 2 winters ago cost $18,000. Vanessa's nail salon deposit was $40,000. Mom's medical copays and Dad's supplemental insurance came to $1,200 a month for 8 years, around $115,000, give or take. Altogether, I had put in more than $330,000. That night, I was lying on the pull-out couch in the den, listening to the quiet sounds of the house settling around me. Everyone else had gone to bed about an hour earlier. And there I was, doing what I always did after visiting my family, going over the mental ledger, not just the money, but the years, the favors, the sacrifices, wondering why I kept giving so much to people who treated me like part of the furniture. I didn't do it because I wanted praise. I did it because of Grandma May. But that night, one thought would not leave me alone. Vanessa had told Mom and Dad that all the financial help came from family savings, some vague shared account that did not exist. She had taken my money and repackaged it as everyone's contribution. She removed me from the story so she could stand in that kitchen and accept credit for a home she had never helped pay for. And my parents never questioned it. Not once. Because asking questions would mean facing the truth. Their younger daughter had not been carrying anything. Their older daughter, the one they barely acknowledged, had been keeping everything from falling apart. It was easier for them to believe the version that made them comfortable. I turned onto my side and stared at the wall. Even the baseboards were new. I had paid for those, too. Somewhere in that house was an envelope from First Heritage Bank, and inside it was information I had not seen yet. Vanessa clearly did not want me near it. That should have been enough of a warning. Thanksgiving morning I woke up at 6 before anyone else. Old habit. Grandma May used to say, "The person who starts the coffee owns the day." The kitchen was cold, with gray morning light pressing against the window. I filled the coffee pot, started it, and leaned against the counter while it brewed. That was when I saw it again. The envelope. Same place, near the toaster. Only this time, it had been opened. The flap was torn cleanly, and it was no longer sitting on the counter. It was in the recycling bin, partly hidden under a cereal box. I knew I should leave it alone. I didn't. The torn flap was facing upward, and through the opening, I could see the top of a document. The words at the top made my pulse jump. Deed transfer notification. I pulled out my phone. Not because I had some plan. It was pure instinct, the way you take a picture after a car accident before your mind has even caught up to what happened. I took one photo of the header, just the header. Then I pushed the envelope back under the cereal box. Deed transfer, on a property I had co-signed for. My hands started shaking, and it had nothing to do with the cold. Then I heard footsteps on the stairs. I slipped my phone into my back pocket and grabbed a potato peeler from the drawer. When Mom walked in, I was already standing at the sink with a 5-pound bag of russet potatoes. "You're up early," she said. She was in her bathrobe, her hair still pinned from the night before. "Good. Peel the potatoes." I had already started. She didn't thank me. She didn't ask how I slept. She simply poured herself coffee from the pot I had made and sat down at the table with yesterday's crossword puzzle. So I peeled potatoes and thought about those words. Deed transfer notification. Maybe it was routine. Maybe it was connected to refinancing. Maybe it was some tax update. Maybe it meant nothing. But Vanessa had told me not to touch that envelope, and Vanessa never got nervous over nothing. I peeled the last potato and dropped it into the pot. The water splashed, then went still. I stared at the thin gray peel curling off the blade. If my name had been removed from that deed, and I still did not know that for certain, then I had spent years paying into a house I no longer had a legal claim to. That was not a simple family misunderstanding. That was something much bigger, and it could get worse. If Vanessa had added her own name to the deed and used the equity I helped build to open another line of credit or any kind of new loan, I could end up connected to financial trouble I never agreed to. My credit score, my borrowing power, my professional reputation. All of it could be affected. Silence was not peace anymore. Silence was starting to feel like signing a blank check and handing it to people who had already shown me who they were. But it was Thanksgiving. I could hear people moving around upstairs. Outside, car doors started closing in the driveway. The Petersons were early. Aunt Ruthie's warm, scratchy voice drifted through the hallway. I had two choices: keep peeling potatoes, or start peeling back the truth. I dried my hands on the towel. For the moment, I chose peace. Because Grandma May's voice was still louder than my suspicion, and after 16 years of trying to honor the woman who raised me, I told myself one more day would not break me. "Bridget," Mom called from the dining room, "get the good china from the hutch and make sure Vanessa's place setting is next to Dad." Of course. I carried the plates to the table and set out all 25 places. When I came to my own seat, I put it at the far end, close to the kitchen door, the seat nearest the exit. Vanessa walked in a few minutes later, perfectly dressed, heels clicking across the hardwood floor I had paid to refinish. She didn't look at me. She looked through me. "What's wrong with you?" she asked. "You look like something awful happened." Then she laughed. Derek passed through the room without saying a word. The table stretched from one wall to the other. Mom had added the extra leaf and pushed the couch back to make enough space. Dining chairs, folding chairs, even the piano bench. Every seat was taken. Dad sat at the head of the table. Mom was beside him. Vanessa and Derek were on his other side, front and center. I sat at the far end, squeezed between Aunt Ruthie and a cousin's husband whose name I could never remember. Mom tapped her glass. "Vanessa, would you like to say grace?" Vanessa stood. She folded her hands and closed her eyes just long enough to make it look sincere. "Thank you, Lord, for this family. Thank you for Mom and Dad and everything they do for us. Thank you for Derek, for standing by me. Thank you for everyone at this table. Everyone." A word that technically included me, but somehow never really did. "Amen," the room said. I looked down at my plate. Under the table, Aunt Ruthie reached for my hand and squeezed it once. The food started moving around the table. Turkey, mashed potatoes, cranberry sauce, gravy. Voices overlapped. Someone's child spilled juice. Uncle Ray was arguing about the Eagles' defensive line. The Petersons had brought a pumpkin pie no one had asked for. I ate. I smiled when someone spoke to me. I passed the gravy, but I kept watching Vanessa. She was at the center of every conversation, laughing too loudly, touching Mom's arm, telling a story about a client at the salon while everyone leaned in like she was the most fascinating person in the room, and every few minutes, she glanced at me. Quick, sharp little looks, checking whether I was still sitting there, checking whether I was still quiet. I took a sip of water and looked right back at her across the table. She looked away first. After dinner, the table slowly broke apart. Some people moved into the living room. The kids disappeared into the basement. The men gathered around the TV. I was carrying plates into the kitchen when I heard Vanessa's voice rise above everyone else. She was in the living room, sitting on the arm of the sofa, holding out her right hand like she was showing off jewelry in a magazine. "Mom gave it to me last week," she said. "Isn't it beautiful?" I stopped in the doorway. I knew that ring. Oval sapphire, thin gold band, a tiny mark on the setting from when Grandma May caught it on a garden fence back in 1987. When I was little, she used to let me try it on. It was always too big for my finger, and Grandma May had told me that ring would be mine. She said it in front of Mom. She said it the summer before she passed. "Where did you get that?" I asked. My voice came out colder than I meant it to. Vanessa smiled. "Mom gave it to me. She said Grandma would have wanted me to have it." I looked at Mom. Mom nodded without hesitation. "Vanessa is here every day," she said. "She deserves it." The room went quiet. Not fully quiet, just that uncomfortable kind of quiet where everyone suddenly finds something else to look at. Aunt Colleen stared into her wine glass. Uncle Ray cleared his throat. Derek sat in the corner, watching me carefully. His jaw was tight, like he knew something he wished he didn't. "Okay," I said. Just one word. Then I turned and walked back into the kitchen with the plates still in my hands. I set them in the sink and turned on the water. I watched it rise around the china. The good china. The china Grandma May had chosen for this house. Okay was all I had in that moment, because anything more would have opened a truth that room was not ready for, and neither was I. Not yet. 20 minutes later, Vanessa followed the attention back into the living room. The dishes were done. I was standing near the fireplace talking to Aunt Ruthie about her garden, trying to feel like a normal person at a normal family holiday. Vanessa settled into the middle of the couch and started telling stories. Old stories, childhood stories, the kind that sound funny only when you leave out what really happened. "Remember when Bridget cried at her science fair because nobody came?" she said, looking around the room instead of at me. "She made this whole volcano and then got upset because Mom had to work. She always needed so much attention." Heat climbed up my neck. That was not how it happened. Vanessa tilted her head. "See? Still so sensitive." "Bridget, don't start," Mom said from the armchair. Sharp, final. "Not today." "Girls, enough," Dad said from the recliner, his eyes still on the screen. But somehow his enough was not aimed at Vanessa. It was aimed at me. It was always aimed at me. Because I was the one who reacted. Vanessa never had to stop because no one ever admitted she had started. So she kept going. Another story. Another edited version of the past. Another memory reshaped so she could look reasonable and I could look fragile. The room listened. A few people gave nervous little laughs. Most just looked down at their drinks. Then Vanessa leaned forward, her voice soft and sweet. "I just want us to be a family," she said. "Is that really so hard for you?" There were 25 people in that room, and not one of them heard me. Not one of them heard the way the word family sounded coming from a woman wearing Grandma May's ring while sitting in a house I had helped keep standing. Aunt Ruthie caught my eye. She mouthed 2 words. "Not here." I clenched my jaw. Then I nodded. But the air in the room had changed, and Vanessa knew it. I could see it in the way she kept talking, like a person trying to drown out something she was afraid might finally be said out loud. I needed water, that was all. A glass of water and 2 minutes where nobody was watching me. I stood up from beside the fireplace. The living room was packed. Every chair was taken. Kids sat on the floor. Coats were piled on the piano bench. The only way to the kitchen was through the narrow space between the coffee table and the back of the sofa, right where Vanessa was sitting like the center of the universe. I turned sideways to pass through. My shoulder barely brushed hers. Barely. The kind of contact that happens 100 times at a crowded family gathering. The kind of thing most people would not even notice. Vanessa noticed. She went still. Mid-sentence. Mid-laugh. And the whole room noticed, too, because when the loudest person stops making noise, everyone feels it. She turned her head slowly. Her eyes locked onto mine. And in that instant, I saw it coming. The way her jaw tightened. The way her right hand lifted from the armrest. I saw every part of it, and still, my body did not move. Because some part of my mind refused to believe she would actually do it. Not here. Not in front of everyone. Not over something so small. But I was wrong. The room seemed to hold its breath. 25 people, conversations stopped, forks paused, even the TV felt quieter. Vanessa's hand was in the air, and I was standing there, the glass of water forgotten, watching my younger sister pull her arm back in a room full of family. I wish I could say I was ready. I wish I could say I saw it coming and braced myself, but the truth is, I just stood there, the way you stand at the edge of something you have been falling toward your entire life, and then, finally, the ground disappears. The next 3 seconds changed everything. I was standing there and I could feel it before it happened. You know that feeling? When the whole room shifts and you know something is coming but you still can't stop it? Right now, I need you to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment. Have you ever been the one your family blamed no matter how hard you tried? Tell me below, because I need to know I'm not the only one. Now let me tell you what happened next. But before I get to the moment in the living room, and I will tell you exactly how it happened, I need to go back about 30 minutes. After Vanessa's little performance with the childhood stories, I excused myself and walked down the hallway. I locked the bathroom door behind me and sat on the edge of the tub with my phone in my hand. I wasn't hiding. I was trying to breathe, and I was checking my email, because when everything around me feels out of control, that is what I do. I work. There were 3 unread messages. 2 were from colleagues, just polite holiday messages. The third was from Marcus Webb. Marcus is a real estate attorney I've worked with for years on commercial deals. He is sharp, careful, and not the kind of man who wastes words. He writes texts like legal documents, full sentences, proper punctuation, no emojis. That morning, before the drive, before the potatoes, before all of this, I had emailed him the photo I took of the deed transfer notice in the recycling bin. Just 1 picture and 2 short lines. This is my parents' property. I'm a co-signer on the second mortgage. Can you look into this? His reply came in at 3:47 p.m. Got your email about the property. Something doesn't look right. Call me Monday. Marcus does not say something doesn't look right unless something is seriously wrong. I had worked with him on 12 transactions. He was calm, precise, and never dramatic. So if Marcus was concerned, then I needed to be concerned too. 4 minutes later, another message came through. Don't sign anything. Don't agree to anything. Call me Monday. That was it. No small talk. No happy Thanksgiving. Just instructions. I stared at the screen until the light dimmed in my hand. Then I stood up, splashed water on my face, unlocked the door, and stepped back into the hallway. I didn't know exactly what Marcus had found, but I could feel the outline of it, like the air before a storm. You may not see the clouds yet, but you can feel the pressure changing. I turned the corner and almost ran straight into Derek. He was standing alone against the wall across from the bathroom, arms crossed, tie loosened. He looked like a man who had been fighting with his own conscience and losing. "Bridget," he said quietly. I stopped. His voice was barely above a whisper. "I want you to know I told her not to do it." My stomach tightened. "Do what?" He opened his mouth, then closed it again. His eyes flicked toward the living room, where Vanessa's laugh cut through the noise. "Derek!" Vanessa's voice snapped from the other room. "Get in here!" He flinched. Actually flinched. Then he looked straight at me and said, "Just check your mail when you get home. Your actual mail. The stuff in your mailbox." "Derek now," Vanessa called again. He pushed himself off the wall, then paused. "I'm sorry," he said. And then he was gone, disappearing around the corner into the living room, where Vanessa was waiting for him like she owned the air he breathed. I stood there in the hallway. Behind me, the bathroom faucet dripped. A child ran past toward the basement, sneakers squeaking against the hardwood. "Check your mail." Derek knew something. Whatever it was, it scared him enough to warn me, but not enough to say it out loud. That told me 2 things. It was serious, and Vanessa was the reason he could not tell me more. I pulled out my phone again. Marcus's message was still on the screen. "Don't sign anything." And now, Derek, check your mail. 2 warnings from 2 different men, and neither of them would give me the whole truth. I slipped the phone back into my pocket. My fingers brushed the edge of my car keys. For the first time all day, I thought about leaving, just walking out, getting in my car and driving home. But then Grandma May's voice rose in my mind. 1 more hour. Just 1 more. Then Mom wanted a photo Of course she did. She wanted one every year, and every year she arranged it like a theater director trying to organize actors who had missed rehearsal. Everyone by the fireplace. Gerald, center, Vanessa, right here next to me. Derek behind Vanessa, Ruthie on the end. People shuffled into place. The fire crackled. Somewhere downstairs a child was crying. Uncle Ray held up the phone and tried to figure out the timer. "Bridget, stand in the back," Mom said. So I stepped behind the second row. From there I could see the top of Mom's head, Vanessa's highlighted hair, and Derek's tense shoulders. Aunt Ruthie reached back and gently tugged my sleeve. "Come up here, honey," she said. "You're hidden." "Ruthie, you're blocking Vanessa," Mom said without even turning around. Aunt Ruthie let go of my sleeve. Then she looked at me. It was one of those looks that says two things at once. "I'm sorry, and I see you." "Say Thanksgiving," Uncle Ray called. The camera clicked. I was at the edge of the picture, half cut off by the frame. 1 foot in, 1 foot out. A perfect image of where I stood in that family. I thought about the last photo we took with Grandma May. Christmas, 16 years earlier. She stood in the center and I was tucked under her arm. She smelled like lavender and brown sugar. In that picture, I was smiling so hard my eyes were almost closed. Back then, I belonged somewhere in the frame. Not anymore. The group broke apart. People crowded around Uncle Ray's phone to look at the picture. "Oh, that's a good one." "Look at the kids in front." Nobody asked, "Where's Bridget?" because Bridget was barely visible. And nobody notices what they have trained themselves not to see. That was the last family photo I would ever be part of. I didn't know it in that moment. But looking back now, the frame had already cracked. And now, you're caught up. I was standing in the narrow space between the coffee table and the sofa. My shoulder had just brushed Vanessa's. That was all it was. A tiny, accidental touch. The kind that happens when 25 people are packed into one living room with barely enough space to move. Before I could even take my next breath, her hand landed across my face. The sound was sharper than I expected. Not a dull sound, a clean crack. Open palm, full force, right across my left cheek. My head turned with it. My earring swung against my neck. At the corner of my lip, I tasted something metallic. "Do you ever watch where you're going?" Vanessa snapped. Her voice filled the room like an alarm, high, sharp, and aimed straight at me. And then everything stopped. I mean everything. Uncle Ray's beer bottle froze halfway to his mouth. Aunt Colleen put her hand over her daughter's eyes. A child near the TV dropped a crayon onto the floor. The furnace kicked on, and suddenly that sound felt enormous because no one else was making a sound. I slowly turned my head back. Heat was spreading across my cheekbone. My left eye started watering, not because I was crying. It was just my body reacting before my mind could catch up. I blinked it away. Then I looked at Vanessa. Her chest was rising and falling fast. Her hand was still in the air, not because she was going to do it again, but because she seemed unsure what to do with it now. Her eyes were wide, but not with regret, with adrenaline. 25 people had seen what happened. Not one of them spoke. The silence was so heavy I could hear the ice shifting in someone's glass across the room. I could hear the clock on the mantel. I could hear my own heartbeat, slow and thick, like it was moving through mud. I stood there. I didn't raise my hand. I didn't step back. I didn't say anything. Because I knew the next person who spoke would show me exactly where I stood in that family. Mom moved first. She crossed the room in 3 quick steps. For one foolish, hopeful second, I thought she was coming to me. I thought she had just seen her daughter get hurt in front of an entire room, and that finally she would do what a mother is supposed to do. But she stopped in front of me. She looked me up and down. Her mouth tightened into a thin line. "Apologize," she said, "or leave right now." She was talking to me. Those words landed harder than the hand across my face. I felt them somewhere deep in my chest, in the place where I had kept the last small piece of belief that maybe one day my mother would choose me. "She did that to me," I said quietly. "You provoked her," Mom replied. "You always do." I looked at Dad. He was already standing. He didn't say a single word, not one. He walked to the front door and opened it. cold November air rushed into the house, lifting a napkin off the side table and sending it fluttering to the floor. Dad stood there with one hand on the knob, holding the door open for me like I was a stranger who had overstayed her welcome. "Gerald," Aunt Ruthie started from the corner, "please." Dad didn't look at her. He didn't look at me either. He looked at the floor. Vanessa was sitting on the couch now. Her eyes were wet. Her lower lip trembled in that perfect, practiced way it always did when she needed the room to see her as the one who had been wronged. "She walked into me on purpose," she whispered, just loud enough for everyone to hear. Mom turned back to me. "This is my house," she said. "Apologize to your sister." I looked at the open door. The porch light was on. Beyond it, I could see the driveway, my car, and the road that would take me back to the turnpike. 3 hours to Hartford. Then I looked around the room. 25 faces, some shocked, some uncomfortable, none brave enough to step forward. The door was open. The decision had already been made, not by me, by them. I picked up my coat from the chair near the window. I took my keys from the hook by the door. I didn't hurry. I didn't stumble. I walked the way I walk out of a conference room after a meeting that has gone on too long. Aunt Ruthie stood up. Dad stopped her with one look, no words, just a look, and she sat back down. Her face had gone red. Her hands were shaking. I passed Dad at the door. He was still holding it open. His knuckles were white around the knob. For a second, I stopped beside him, close enough to smell the same aftershave he had worn since I was 5 years old. He still didn't look at me. So I stepped onto the porch. The cold air hit the same cheek Vanessa had marked. It stung differently out there. Cleaner somehow. Behind me, the door closed. Then I heard the lock turn. Click. I walked to my car. The gravel crunched under my shoes. The driveway was full. 7 cars, maybe 8. Mine was parked at the end, closest to the road, because I had been the last one to arrive. Waiting. I got into the driver's seat. I didn't start the engine right away. I put my hands on the wheel, 10 and 2, and looked at the house. The windows glowed warm and yellow. Behind the curtains, I could see people moving. 1 minute passed, then 2, then 3. Finally, I started the car, pulled out of the driveway, and turned left onto the county road. In the rearview mirror, the house grew smaller and smaller until the trees swallowed it completely. 3 hours to Hartford. I didn't turn on the radio. I didn't call anyone. I didn't cry. I just drove. The white lines on the road appeared one after another, disappearing under my headlights as the darkness filled the windshield. Somewhere past Scranton, my phone buzzed. "Aunt Ruthie. I'm so sorry, honey. That was wrong. All of it." I read it at a red light. I didn't answer. Not yet. At 11:14 p.m., I pulled into my apartment complex. The parking lot was quiet. A cat slipped under a dumpster. The air smelled like frozen leaves. I sat in the car for a moment with the engine off, staring at the entrance to my building. Then Derek's warning came back to me. "Check your mail." I got out and walked to the row of mailboxes by the front door. Unit 4, B. I turned the key and pulled out 3 days' worth of envelopes. Junk mail. A credit card offer. A water bill. And 1 envelope from the Fulton County Recorder's Office, postmarked 5 days earlier. I opened it right there under the parking lot light. Inside was a certified copy of a deed transfer, my parents' property. The document said the transfer had been recorded 3 weeks earlier. My name, Bridget Sinclair, had been removed from the deed. A new name had been added, Vanessa Sinclair. At the bottom were 4 signatures, Gerald Sinclair, Donna Sinclair, Vanessa Sinclair, and a 4th one, Bridget Sinclair. I stared at my name, only it wasn't my handwriting. The loops were too round. The S was wrong. The whole signature looked rushed, almost practiced, but not mine. Someone had signed my name on a legal document without telling me, without asking me, without my permission. I walked inside without taking off my coat. I sat down at the kitchen table, opened my laptop, and scanned every page, front, back, margins, every inch of it. Then I emailed the entire file to Marcus Webb with 1 sentence. "They signed my name without my consent. Call me in the morning." After that, I sat in the dark. The apartment hummed around me. The refrigerator clicked on. A car passed outside, At exactly 8 a.m., my phone rang. "Marcus." "This is serious," he said. "We file Monday." Monday morning was when everything changed. At 9 a.m., I was sitting across from Marcus in his downtown Hartford office. He had his reading glasses on and a file in front of him that was already much thicker than it should have been. "I pulled the records Friday night," he said, scanning the papers. "Your name was on the original deed as cosigner when the second mortgage was recorded 8 years ago. 3 weeks ago, a new deed was filed, removing you and adding Vanessa Sinclair as co-owner." "Without my signature?" I asked. Marcus paused. "That's the problem." He slid a photocopy across the desk. "There is a signature," he said. "It just isn't yours." I looked down at the page. There it was again. Bridget Sinclair. But not written by me. Loopy, rushed, wrong. Then Marcus said, "There's more." He took off his glasses. After the deed transfer was recorded, someone opened a home equity line of credit against the property, $85,000. The application lists Vanessa Sinclair as the borrower. The approval was based on the equity built in the house. Equity I had paid for, with money I earned. My voice sounded far away when I asked, "Where did the $85,000 go?" "I had a forensic accountant I trust do a preliminary trace," Marcus said. "Most of it went into a business account connected to Vanessa's nail salon. The rest appears to have covered personal credit card debt in her name." I leaned back in the chair. It creaked beneath me. Outside the window, Hartford traffic moved slowly through the cold December morning. "Marcus," I said, "what exactly are we looking at?" He folded his hands on the desk. "An unauthorized signature on a recorded property document, possible real estate-related misconduct, potential identity-related issues if your personal information was used on the application." Then he looked straight at me. "Your sister signed your name on a legal document. In this state, that can be treated as a felony." The words sat in the room like a plate dropped on tile. I nodded slowly. "What do we do?" Before lunch, Marcus drafted 3 cease and desist letters, one to Vanessa Sinclair, one to Gerald and Donna Sinclair, and one to the bank that approved the HELOC. The wording was clean, direct, and impossible to misunderstand. It demanded an immediate freeze on the HELOC, restoration of the original deed with my name on it, a full accounting of every dollar withdrawn, and formal notice that legal action would move forward if they did not comply within 15 days. 15 days, Marcus said. "That's generous." While he printed the letters, I took out my phone and opened my banking app. For 8 years, I had automatic transfers set up, $1,200 a month to my parents' joint account, payments tied to the second mortgage, quarterly transfers to Vanessa's salon business account. I canceled all of them, every single one. It took 4 minutes. 8 years of financial support ended with 6 taps on a screen. Marcus watched me from across the desk. "You're sure?" he asked. "They signed my name and used the equity I built," I said. "I'm not paying for that anymore." He nodded. "Once we file the complaint with the county recorder, the deed transfer gets flagged. A Ellis pendens goes on the property. That gives public notice that the property is involved in a legal dispute. No one can sell it, transfer it, or refinance it until this is resolved." I looked at him. "Will my parents face consequences too?" Marcus leaned back in his chair. "They signed the deed under their own names. If they say they didn't know your signature wasn't real, they'll need to prove Vanessa misled them. Either way, someone is going to have a very difficult explanation to give." I stared at the letters sitting on his desk. 3 envelopes. 3 relationships changed forever by 12 pages of legal language. "I'm not trying to punish anyone," I told Marcus. "I'm protecting myself." He slid the envelopes into a FedEx mailer and nodded. "That is exactly what you're doing." We shook hands and I drove back to my apartment. For the first time in months, my phone was quiet, but I knew it would not stay that way for long. Wednesday morning, 5 days after Thanksgiving, my phone rang at 7:42. "Mom." I almost let it go. But I had been waiting for that call the way people wait for test results. Part of me wanted to know. The other part already knew it would hurt. I answered. "Bridget, something is wrong with the bank." Her voice was tense. Not angry yet, just confused. "The payment didn't go through this month." "There's nothing wrong with the bank, Mom," I said. "I canceled it." Silence. Not empty silence. Heavy silence. Through the phone, I could hear the kitchen clock ticking. I could hear Dad breathing somewhere near her. "What do you mean you canceled it?" "I mean I stopped paying for a house I no longer legally share." "What are you talking about?" Her voice rose. "This is your family. A family that signed my name without permission and used the equity I built. You'll be hearing from my attorney." Then the confusion cracked. Her voice sharpened like ice splitting across a pond. "You ungrateful, after everything we've—" "Everything you've what, Mom?" I asked. "Name one thing." She couldn't. The pause stretched long enough for the answer to become obvious. I heard her breath catch. Then Dad took the phone. His voice was low and tired, the way it always sounded when he had been pulled into a conflict he wanted to avoid. "Bridget, don't do this to your mother." "I didn't do anything to her, Dad. Ask who did." Then I hung up. I placed the phone face down on the counter. Over the next 3 hours, it buzzed 14 times. Vanessa, Mom, Dad. Vanessa again, Derek once. Then Mom. Then Vanessa. 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 I didn't answer any of them. I made coffee. I ate toast. I sat at my kitchen table and watched the December sunlight move slowly across the floor, and for the first time in 10 years, I did not feel the weight of that house sitting on my back. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't have to. Thursday, the FedEx packages arrived. I knew because Vanessa called me at 11:08 a.m. and she was crying. Not the careful, dramatic crying she used in front of Mom. This was different. Messy, panicked, real. "You can't do this to me," she said. "I'm your sister." "You signed my name on a legal document, Vanessa. That stopped being a family matter the second you did it." "Mom and Dad told me to do it," she said quickly. "They said you wouldn't care." I closed my eyes. There it was. The shift. The same move she had made since we were children. Break something, then point to someone else. Then they can explain that too. "Bridget, please, please, I'll fix it. I'll put your name back. I'll close the HELOC. Just don't file." "You had 3 weeks to fix it," I said. "Instead, you used $85,000 of equity from a house I helped pay for." She made a sound that was half sob, half gasp, and for the first time in my life, I heard my sister without the performance. No audience, no spotlight, no room full of people ready to protect her, just a woman realizing the safety net beneath her had been paid for by someone else. And now it was gone. "You're going to ruin this family," she whispered. "No," I said. "I just stopped rebuilding it." Then I hung up. I opened my laptop and emailed Marcus one word: proceed. After that, I sat in my apartment and listened to the quiet. No calls I had to answer, no checks I had to write, no potatoes to peel in a kitchen where I was never truly welcome. The quiet felt strange, not peaceful yet, more like the stillness after a surgeon makes the final cut, before anyone knows whether the patient can breathe on their own. But it was mine. For the first time in 16 years, the silence belonged to me. And this is where everything became real. Because what I just told you was only the beginning. If this story feels familiar, if you have ever been the one holding everything together while everyone else took the credit, drop a comment right now. Tell me your story. And if you haven't subscribed yet, this is the moment to do it, because what happened next was the part nobody saw coming. Monday, 1 week after Thanksgiving, Marcus filed the formal complaint with the Fulton County Recorder's Office. He did not rush it. He did not make a scene. He walked into the office at 9 a.m. with a manila folder and everything arranged in order. The original deed showing my name, the altered deed transfer with the signature that was not mine, bank statements proving 8 years of payments from my account, and a notarized statement from me confirming I had never approved the transfer. By noon, the county placed a lease pendens on the property. That meant the house was now flagged in the public record. No one could sell it. No one could refinance it. No one could pull another credit line against it. The property was locked in place until the dispute was resolved. Marcus also sent formal notice to the bank that approved the HELOC. Before issuing a secured credit line, a lender is supposed to verify identity and consent from the necessary parties connected to the property. They had approved $85,000 based on a signature that did not belong to me. The bank's compliance office responded within 4 hours. The HELOC was suspended. Vanessa could not withdraw another dollar. At 3 p.m., Marcus called me. The county just froze the deed. Your sister can't touch that house. I was sitting in my office when Marcus said it. Through the glass wall, I could see my team working on a bid for a new hospital wing. Normal life? Real work. The kind of work where people build things instead of quietly taking them apart. What happens next? I asked. We gave them 15 days to comply with the cease and desist, Marcus said. If they restore the deed and close the HELOC, this stays a civil matter. If they don't, we move forward formally. 15 days, 2 weeks, and 1 day. I thanked him, ended the call, and went back to my blueprints. The clock had started, and the first piece fell on day 3. Vanessa had been using the HELOC to keep her salon alive. Rent, supplies, payroll for 3 employees, all of it. She wasn't just borrowing against the house, she was breathing through it. That credit line was the only thing keeping her doors open. So when the bank froze it, the money stopped instantly. No warning, no grace period, just a frozen account and a landlord expecting $12,000 by the 10th of the month. She couldn't pay it. Of course she couldn't. The salon had been losing money for more than a year. The new gel line, the expansion plans, the success story she performed at the Thanksgiving table, all of it was smoke and mirrors. The salon was sinking, and the HELOC had been the pump keeping water out. Then the landlord posted a 10-day notice on the salon door. Pay or leave. I know this because Derek texted me. One long message at 2 o'clock in the morning, full of typos, panic, and exhaustion. She used the HELOC for everything. Rent, cards, everything. She told me it was handled. I told her not to do the deed thing. She said if I said anything, she'd tell your parents I cheated. I didn't. I just didn't push back hard enough. Then he ended with something I read 3 times. You took from the one person keeping us above water. That's what I told her. She threw a plate at me. I read the message twice more. Then I put my phone down and went to bed. I didn't feel happy. I didn't feel victorious. I felt the way you feel when a building you've been holding up with your own body finally comes down. Relieved that you stepped away in time. Sick from the sound of the collapse. Vanessa called me 6 times that week. Every call went to voicemail. On day 9, Dad called. For a second, I almost didn't recognize his voice. It sounded thinner, older, like those 10 days had aged him by 10 years. Birdie, he said, this has gone too far. He hadn't called me Birdie since I was 12. Hearing it cracked something in my chest, something I thought had already broken clean. Dad, I said, she signed my name on a legal document. She made a mistake. People make mistakes. You held the door open for me on Thanksgiving, I said. You didn't say one word. Silence. Through the phone, I could hear the furnace running. Somewhere in the background, Mom's TV was on, some game show host sounding far too cheerful. I didn't know what to say, he finally admitted. That's the problem, I said. You never do. More silence. Then he asked carefully, like he was handling glass. What do you want from us? I want the deed restored, I want the HELOC closed, and I want Vanessa to answer for what she did. That isn't revenge, Dad. That's accountability. She's your sister. She crossed a line that being family does not erase. His breath shook. It was the sound of a man who had spent 65 years avoiding difficult conversations, finally standing in the middle of one he couldn't walk around. If you do this, he said, your mother will never forgive you. I closed my eyes. I saw him at the door again, his hand on the knob, cold air rushing into the room, my cheek still burning. His silence louder than anything he could have said. He chose silence then. Now he was choosing negotiation. Both meant the same thing. Avoid the truth as long as possible. She hasn't forgiven me for leaving home at 18, Dad, I said. I think I'll survive. He hung up. No goodbye. Just the quiet click of a man who had run out of arguments he never really had. I set the phone down and stared at the ceiling. 15 days. 6 left. Day 15 came. The deadline. At 9 a.m., Marcus sent a check-in email. Any response from the other side? Nothing. No attorney contact. No compliance. No deed correction. No HELOC closure. Nothing but silence, and one Facebook post from Vanessa 3 days earlier. Some people use money to control their family. I feel sorry for anyone who thinks love has a price tag. I took a screenshot and sent it to Marcus. His reply came back quickly. She's building a story for the public. We file tomorrow. And they did. The next morning, Marcus submitted a formal complaint to the district attorney's office. The filing included the altered deed, the bank records showing unauthorized HELOC draws, my affidavit, and a handwriting comparison from a certified document examiner confirming that the signature was not mine. Within 48 hours, the DA's office assigned a case number. I was sitting in my car outside the office when Marcus called with the update. The December sky was flat and gray. The trees were bare. The heater hummed softly through the vents. It's filed, he said. The DA has it. Okay? You okay? I looked through the windshield. Across the street, a woman walked into an office building carrying coffee, scrolling on her phone, living an ordinary Tuesday like nothing in the world had shifted. For about 3 seconds, I envied her. I gave them 15 days, I said. She gave me a mark on my face and a signature that wasn't mine. Marcus didn't answer. He didn't need to. After we hung up, I sat in the car for a few more minutes. I thought about Grandma May. I thought about the promise I made to a woman who loved me enough to ask me to hold together a family that had no idea how to hold me back. I kept them warm for years. They lit the match themselves. Then I pulled out of the lot and drove to work. By January, the DA's office had opened a formal investigation. Vanessa was called in to give a statement. She hired a lawyer. I didn't know how she paid for one, and I didn't ask. Maybe Derek helped. Maybe it went on another card. Maybe Mom sold something. It was no longer my concern. The salon was gone. The landlord changed the locks on December 22nd. 3 employees lost their jobs 2 days before Christmas. Vanessa posted a tearful Instagram story blaming unforeseen financial circumstances, which was an interesting way of saying the truth had finally caught up with her. Derek moved out. He texted me once. I should have said something sooner. I'm sorry. I believed him. Sorry doesn't turn back the clock. But at least he said it. Online, Vanessa did what Vanessa always did best. She performed. Being hurt by your own family during the holidays is a kind of pain no one talks about, she posted. Some people just can't stand to see others happy. Family should be about love, not lawyers. She never mentioned the signature. She never mentioned the HELOC. She never mentioned me by name, but Aunt Ruthie did. Under one of Vanessa's posts, the one about family being about love, Ruthie left a single comment. Maybe tell the full story, Vanessa. All of it. Vanessa deleted it within 10 minutes, but screenshots move faster than pride. Ruthie told me later that 3 relatives texted her asking what she meant. She answered simply, no drama, no exaggeration, just the truth. Derek confirmed the rest. Quietly, through his own lawyer, he handed over a chain of messages between him and Vanessa. Messages where she talked about the deed transfer, the signature she had no right to use, and the plan to open the HELOC before anyone noticed. He did not do it for me. He did it because Vanessa had threatened to make up a story about him, and he decided it was better to tell the truth before she could rewrite it. Slowly, carefully, legally, the walls started closing in. By February, Mom called one last time. I was making dinner, pasta, garlic bread, a glass of wine on the counter. When my phone rang and I saw her name on the screen, I set the spatula down and answered. I don't know why. Maybe because when she spoke, her voice sounded different. Not sharp, not commanding, small. I didn't know about the signature, Bridget, she said, I swear. But you knew I was paying for that house, I said. And you let everyone believe it was Vanessa. Silence. I could hear her breathing. It sounded like someone trying to climb a staircase she never expected to face. I just wanted to keep her close, Mom said. She was the one who stayed. I stayed too, Mom. I stayed for 10 years. You just didn't see it because I didn't live in your zip code. Then she cried. Not the kind of crying meant for an audience. Real crying. The kind that comes out because there is nowhere left to hide it. I listened. I didn't comfort her. I didn't say it was okay because it wasn't. But I didn't make it worse either. There was no point in being cruel. Cruelty was what had been done to me. I hope you figure this out, Mom, I said. But I can't be the person who fixes it anymore. Bridget, take care of yourself, Mom. Then I hung up. I went back to the stove. The pasta was a little overcooked, but I ate it anyway, alone at my kitchen table. The apartment was quiet. The radiator ticked against the wall. Somewhere in Pennsylvania, my mother was sitting inside a house she might lose, realizing that the daughter she dismissed for 20 years had been the one keeping the lights on, and the daughter she kept close was the one who started the fire. I washed my plate, I went to bed, and I slept better than I had in months. In March, Aunt Ruthie drove up to visit me. She brought 2 things, news and a casserole. "Your father sits on the porch every morning now," she said, settling into my kitchen chair with a cup of decaf. "Rain, frost, doesn't matter. He just sits there and stares at the road." I said nothing. "He's always been quiet," she continued, "but this is different, honey. I asked him what he thinks about out there." I looked up. Ruthie's voice softened. "He said, I held the door open. I held it open for her to leave." I set my mug down. The coffee rippled. Ruthie reached into her bag and pulled out an envelope. "He asked me to bring this to you," she said. "Wrote it by hand. Took him 3 days." I took it from her. My name was written on the front. Birdie. Dad's careful, blocky handwriting. The man who never knew how to say what he felt had written it down instead. I opened it later, after Ruthie left. 1 page, blue ink on lined paper, probably torn from a legal pad. He wrote that he was sorry. He wrote that he had always known I was the dependable one, the one who held things together, but he never said it because he thought I didn't need to hear it. Then he wrote that he was wrong. Everyone needs to hear it. He wrote that after I left that night, he stood at the door for 10 minutes, staring at the driveway, knowing he had made a mistake he could not fix with 1 sentence. At the bottom he wrote, "You deserved better from me. I don't know if I can give it now, but I know I should have given it then." Inside the envelope, wrapped in tissue, was Grandma May's sapphire ring. He had taken it back from Vanessa. I held the ring in my palm. It weighed almost nothing. It weighed everything. I put it in my nightstand drawer. I didn't write back, not yet. Small towns have long memories and short fences. When the LA's pendants appeared in the public record, it became searchable. County records in Fulton County were online. Anyone could look them up. And in a town where everyone knows who drives which truck, who bought which house, and who owes what to whom, a legal flag on the Sinclair property became front-page news without ever needing a newspaper. Aunt Ruthie told me the whispers started at church. Someone from the county office mentioned it to someone else, who mentioned it to the organist, who mentioned it to Mom's friend Linda. "Is everything okay with the house?" Linda asked Mom after Sunday service. Mom didn't answer. She picked up her purse and left the fellowship hall without touching a plate. From there, the story built itself. People remembered things. They remembered me paying for the new roof. They remembered my name on the contractor's check for the kitchen. They remembered Vanessa bragging about the salon while I sat quietly at the end of the table. "We always wondered how they paid for that new kitchen," one neighbor told Ruthie. "Now we know." Vanessa's version, the posts, the tears, the carefully chosen words, began to fall apart under public records and the memories people had kept to themselves. You can delete a Facebook comment. You cannot delete a lease pendants. You can tell a story online, but a public filing tells its own story. The town did not exactly take sides. Small towns rarely do. But people stopped asking Vanessa how the salon was doing. They stopped telling Donna what a beautiful family she had. They just stopped. And in a place where attention is its own kind of currency, silence can feel like losing everything. Mom stopped going to church. Vanessa stopped posting. Gerald kept sitting on the porch. And 3 hours away in Hartford, I went to work every morning and came home to an apartment that was quiet, small, and completely mine. By May, 6 months had passed since Thanksgiving. The deed had been restored. My name was back. Not because I wanted ownership. I needed the record corrected first. Before anything else could move forward, the unauthorized transfer had to be undone. Once the title was clean again, I sold my share back to my parents for $1. Marcus filed the paperwork on a Tuesday afternoon. He looked at me with the pen hovering above the page. "You're sure about this?" "I don't want the house," I said. "I want to be free of it." $1. Not because my share had no value. It was worth tens of thousands. But I was done paying for a seat at a table that had never truly been set for me. That dollar was not a discount. It was the final period at the end of a very long sentence. Vanessa accepted the plea agreement in April. The DA offered 2 years of supervised probation, plus full repayment of the $85,000 she had drawn from the HELOC. She didn't have the money, of course. She will be paying it back in installments for years, maybe a decade, maybe longer. Her attorney argued financial hardship. The judge did not seem especially moved. The salon was gone for good. Vanessa started working as a receptionist at a dental office in the next town over. Derek filed for divorce. The paperwork was finalized in March. Mom and Dad sold the 2-acre lot behind the house, the parcel Grandpa had cleared back in the 70s, for $45,000. It covered about 6 months of mortgage payments. They were not going to lose the house. But the cushion was gone. The life they had built on my support had finally shrunk down to the size they could actually afford. I did not contact them directly. Everything went through Aunt Ruthie. Sometimes when I drive to job sites in central Pennsylvania, I pass the Ridgefield exit on the turnpike. I don't take it. Not yet. But I don't look away when I pass it anymore either. One Saturday night in late May, my apartment was quiet. I opened my nightstand drawer. Dad's letter was still there, folded neatly. Beside it was Grandma May's sapphire ring, still wrapped in the tissue he had sent it in. I took it out and held it under the lamp. The stone caught the light, deep blue, almost violet around the edges. The tiny mark from the garden fence was still there. Grandma May never had it repaired. She always said the flaw was part of the story. I slid the ring onto my right ring finger. It fit perfectly, just like it used to when I was a little girl pretending to be grown. Grandma May had asked me to keep them together, and I tried. For 16 years, I shaped myself around that promise. I wrote the checks, I swallowed the insults, I stood at the edge of the family photo. I peeled the potatoes, took the seat closest to the door, and drove 3 hours each way just to be treated like a visitor in a house I helped keep standing. But Grandma May did not raise me to disappear inside other people's needs. She raised me to be a bridge, someone who connects, someone who carries weight, someone who holds things steady. She just never told me that even bridges have limits. She said, "Keep them together." She did not say, "Let them pull you apart." And I think she would understand that now. I think if she were sitting across from me, smelling like lavender and brown sugar, she would take my hand and say, "You did enough, Bertie, more than enough." I looked at the ring, then at Dad's letter, then out the window, at the street light below, the empty sidewalk, and the first warm night of the year. And I smiled, the first real smile in this entire story. Not because everything was fixed, because something finally belonged to me. The next weekend, Aunt Ruthie drove up again. This time, she brought Grandma May's beef stew recipe, the one with the bay leaves, and a bottle of red she had picked up at a gas station. "Don't judge the label," she said, setting it on the counter. It was between this and a Slim Jim. We cooked together. She stood at the stove stirring while I chopped onions, and for a little while it felt like being back in Grandma May's kitchen. 16 years and 1,000 memories ago. "Your dad started seeing someone," Ruthie said, eyes on the pot. I looked over. "A counselor," she added. "First time in his life." "Good for him," I said. "Your mom hasn't gone. She's not blaming you anymore, but she still isn't ready to say the words." "Which words?" "All of them." Ruthie shrugged. "She's stubborn." "You know that." I did. "Vanessa and Derek are officially done," she said. "Papers signed last month." I nodded. I didn't feel happy about it. I didn't feel sad either. I felt the way you feel after a storm passes, when you step outside and everything is soaked, damaged, and somehow lighter. "Your dad misses you," Ruthie said. This time she looked directly at me. "He won't say it the right way. But he does." "I know," I said. "But missing me isn't the same as respecting me." "No," she said softly. "It's not." We sat at my kitchen table with the stew and the gas station wine, and we ate. The apartment was warm. The windows had fogged from the cooking. Ruthie didn't give advice. She didn't tell me to forgive. She didn't tell me to call. She just sat across from me and ate the way Grandma May used to. Present, steady, quiet in a way that said more than talking ever could. At the door, she hugged me. "You did the right thing, Bertie," she said. "The hard thing and the right thing." So here I am, Bridget Sinclair, 38 years old, Director of Business Development, living in a one-bedroom apartment with a drafty window and a stove that clicks twice before it lights. And I want to be clear about something. I do not hate my family. I don't. My parents are flawed, frightened people. My sister is selfish, desperate, and small in the ways that matter most. My father is a decent man who never learned how to speak when silence was easier. My mother is a scared woman who confused closeness with love. They are not monsters. They are just people who got used to taking from someone who never said no. Until she finally did. I used to think loyalty meant never walking away. I used to think keeping a promise meant making yourself smaller so everyone else could stay comfortable. Grandma May asked me to hold the family together, and I thought that meant carrying all of it. The weight, the cost, the silence, the hurt. Now I know better. The first loyalty has to be the one you owe yourself. Everything else comes after that. You can love people and still refuse to let them break you. You can forgive someone without returning to the place where they hurt you. You can sell your share for $1 and still walk away richer than you have ever been. I don't know if I'll talk to my parents again. Maybe I will. Maybe at Christmas, maybe next year. I'm not closing the door forever. But I am no longer holding it open for people who already showed me what they do when given the chance to walk through it. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is not yell. It is not argue. It is not prove your worth to people committed to misunderstanding you. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is leave, close the door behind you, and build something that belongs to you. Grandma May would understand. I look down at the ring on my finger. The sapphire catches the light. The little mark in the setting glints like a secret between us. And this time, when I smile, I mean it. That is my story. And if you are still here, thank you. That means more than you know. Now I have a question for you. Would you have walked out that Thanksgiving night? Or would you have stayed and fought? Drop your answer in the comments. I read every single one. And if this story reminded you of someone who needs to hear it, share it with them. Sometimes people need to be reminded that they are allowed to stop giving. If you want more stories like this, check the description. There is one there I think will hit just as hard. Subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.